Joining us. It's always a pleasure. The hypocrisy of those who are truly hateful in America. It's time we expose who they are, as in the New York Times. Next. Big government backers never hesitate to exploit a crisis, and this tragedy in Tucson is no exception. Within hours of this horrific shooting, radical New York Times columnist and Princeton economics professor Paul Krugman, without any evidence whatsoever, said, quote, the right is to blame, writing, quote, where's that toxic rhetoric coming from? Let's not make a false pretense of balance. It's coming overwhelmingly from the right. Joining me now is William Anderson, Associate Professor of Economics at Frostburg State University, who says Krugman is guilty of doing himself all the things he accuses the right of doing. Professor Anderson, Bill, it's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, good to be here.
Why would an economics professor from Princeton, within hours of this tragedy, suggest that it was actually caused by commentators and politicians with whose language he disapproved going back to the election of last November?
Oh, I'll tell you why. It's because he's basically sold down economics down the road for political opportunism. I mean, he's become a political operative.
And wanting to use his voice at the New York Times, whether it's based on hard evidence or not, because we now know there is no hard evidence for what he said, to smear those who disagree with his political theories.
Oh, exactly. And not only that, but you'll notice that in his blog that he first said, well, we don't know who did this, but we know this has to be a politically motivated shooting. And then in his column on Monday, he says, well, we see that this guy really wasn't that, but that doesn't change our narrative.
Right.
In other words, it's, look, the facts don't fit, but you know something, we're going to make them fit anyway.
I think he actually even went further in his column, saying the guy is crazy, but he's crazy because of the things he's been hearing in the public airwaves. So a congressman, Jim Clyburn, the number 3 ranking Democrat in the House, picks up what Professor columnist Krugman says and says, you know what, I think it's time to rethink the parameters of the First Amendment. What the heck is that all about?
Oh, exactly right. No, it's about getting rid of political opposition. It's not being able to have everybody on the airwaves say what they want. Remember, see, I grew up with the big 3, NBC, ABC, CBS, Walter Cronkite, and Huntley Brinkley, and that news was heavily regulated, and it pretty much just, that everybody was speaking for the government.
Do you think that the big government types like Congressman Clyburn would like to see the FCC push us back in that direction?
Oh, absolutely.
And say that those who express their opinions truly, whether on the left or the right, but not consistent with the government, would be regulated out of business?
Exactly. Oh, they'd be quite happy to do that, all in the name of civility. And I think Radley Balko had a very interesting column the other day. He pointed out that the violence that often government agents engage in, that you've covered on this show, a lot of these no-knock raids on people who are shooting down people who are unarmed, and then afterwards their superiors say, oh, they did exactly what they're trained to do. Well, we're talking this kind of violence goes on all the time, and now they're saying, oh, you're not allowed to criticize it. Or if you raise your voice in criticizing it, you're not being civil.
Are you concerned that as I am, that people in the government, I'm not afraid of Paul Krugman. He can say what he wants. Exactly. And I know his biases, even though, as you know, I'm a graduate of the institution, the economic institution that employs him. I am far more concerned about Jim Clyburn threatening the First Amendment, about Peter King, a so-called conservative Republican here from New York, saying we have to do something about Second Amendment rights, wanting to make it a crime to carry a gun, lawfully carry a gun within 1,000 feet of a public official. What the heck kind of sense does that make?
Oh,
How could the police possibly enforce that?
Well, it can't be. And see, what the thing to remember is something like that would be enforced randomly. And what they would do is they would throw the book at whoever managed to get caught. And no matter how innocent, I mean, it could be some guy on his way, he's going to go hunt deer or something like that, and he happens to be the gun is in the trunk of his car and it's unloaded, but by George, he's within 1,000 feet of a congressman, and you'll get a federal prosecutor who would be ambitious enough to try to prosecute that.
Professor Anderson, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You know that earmark